Hi, I'm Neil Bierbaum, and I'm going to talk today about how a man can be a woman's project or her partner. I'll give some context as to how and why this argument exists in the first place. I'll also give some clear pointers on how men can be partners and not projects, because obviously that's what we want, right, men? So let's get started. So I've heard young men these days saying that they're being rejected by women in droves, and some older men too. And one explanation that the men offer is that women's increasing financial independence leads them to select only the top few percent of men, while the rest are left floundering. Now, even though there is some truth to that, it is ultimately a disempowering argument, because it places the power to do anything about it outside of yourself. In other words, in blunt language, it amounts to an excuse for not doing enough of what is needed to find and be with a woman. As a coach, I believe in every person's ability to overcome their circumstance. So I'm about finding your way to an empowered solution for yourself and not allowing yourself to be limited by a narrative. I also have some personal experience of this. Firstly, I'm a white male in South Africa where Black economic empowerment severely restricts my employment and even commercial options. I've never complained. I've always gone for a solution. Secondly, I've always tried to live a balanced lifestyle and have pursued meaning more than money, so I'm not super wealthy. I'm not one of those billion-dollar exiters, as I call them. And yet, I've never had that be an issue in terms of finding and being with a woman. In fact, the women I've been with have almost always earned more than me, and that's never been an issue for them or for me. So here's my view of what's going on. I think we can say that women have always been the main civilizing influence for men. And it's partly a bit of humor, but I think there's a genuine truth to this. I mean, it's usually to impress a woman that a guy cleans up his act, isn't it? It's for a woman, or the hope of finding a woman, that a young man will join a gym and exercise or do other things to build his confidence. It's for women that young men will find a job and buy a car so that he can take a woman on a date and hopefully impress her enough to marry her or get her to marry him and start a family, and so on. Now, I'm not saying we should all become pussies and do whatever women tell us. Please don't jump to that conclusion. All I'm saying is that if it wasn't for women, we men might well be living in some version of Lord of the Flies. And what's happening now is that women are pushing us towards the next stage of our evolution. They're sending us a message. Let me explain. There's the joke, we can probably say an anachronistic joke, that goes like this. A woman is getting married and she's frantic that she won't remember what to do. It's simple, says her bridesmaid after she's heard this for the umpteenth time. You walk up the aisle, you stand at the altar, you sing the first hymn. So the bride creates a little mantra for herself. It goes, I'll alter him, I'll alter him, I'll alter him. Of course, if you say that out loud, it starts to sound like, I'll alter him. In other words, she'll do what many women have attempted to do, which is to change her man in some way, to civilize him, to make him more sensitive, more responsible, more something. Few have succeeded. I'm sure they will agree. Instead, they've mostly ended up frustrated, even exasperated. If you're unsure, go ask your mother. The point is that women have always made men their project. They didn't ask us, and men didn't agree, but that doesn't matter. They still got angry with men for not accepting the task. Either way, it seems that many women have now woken up to the fact, as this meme shows, that they've been turning men into their project, and they're looking at it and saying that they don't want that anymore. Being economically independent probably has a lot to do with it. They just don't have to put up with that stuff anymore. They have better things to do with their time and energy. Relationships are important, but not that important. And as with any trend or movement, responses are going to be on a continuum. And so it's no surprise that some women have decided to go the solo route, or what started in South Korea and has spread to America as the 4B movement. I think those are more extreme, however, and I've also read that that trend itself has faded somewhat in South Korea. And yes, as a man, It does feel like women are also blaming men for the fact of the project in the first place, which is a bit unfair, because if you think about it, as I mentioned, they never really asked us. But that, expecting something without asking, then punishing the person for not giving it to you, is the main problem in all relationships, in both directions, and something we'll address in a separate episode. For now, let's recognize that it won't help us to try to win that argument. Instead, we should take the essence of the message, which is that women want a partner and not a project, and work with that. Because let me tell you, it will be useful for us to listen. Plus, it's a more empowered and empowering perspective because it means you can do something about it. And let me add this. For the past 2 decades, I've been in the personal development space, running workshops and coaching individuals. And the ratio of women developing themselves versus men is easily 70-30, or even 80-20 in terms of ratios, based on the audiences that I've seen. If my wife runs a workshop for women, she might get 80 attendees. If I do the same for men, I'll be lucky to get 8. Unless it's a religious gathering, I've seen that men tend to flock to those. So when women have moved into the space of partner, not project, while men are blaming economic factors instead of themselves, I can see why. Sorry, guys, but I am on your side here. I do want to help you. It just might not be the medicine you want to take. So, let me be clear. Men, if you want to be with a woman, these days, you need to become a partner and not a project. And not for their sake, but for your own. And by the way, if you're finding value from this, please subscribe. There's a lot more to come. So, what does it mean that we should become a partner and not a project? In its essence, being a partner and not a project means, firstly, to listen. Like really listen to what your partner is saying. And listen to understand, not listen so that you can correct everything with facts. Then, second, is to respond. And respond is a particularly chosen word. Respond is different from react. To react is to have that knee-jerk reaction, to give an unaware, automatically, typically male, perhaps, response, like mansplaining or being defensive, or the one I mentioned, which is insisting that you have the facts when really what's on the table, if you listen, is a matter of the heart. But also don't be so overly attentive that you're perfect, because believe me, women still want some sort of a project. They still want some part of you that is out of reach, just not all of you. I'm being serious here. If a woman gets exactly the man she wants, she probably won't want him anymore. And this is not about playing games. It just means do it for your own sake and use it to develop yourself into a better person. Don't do it to please her. Let the woman's asking guide you, point you in a few directions, but don't actually become everything she asks just because she asks it. That's not at all what I'm saying. So I'll be talking plenty more about this in this channel. For now, let me give you some practical pointers to becoming a partner and not a project. First thing you can do, demonstrate self-care and home care. These are the first signs that a woman who meets you is not going to have to look after you and you be her project in that sense. Have a grooming routine. Be able to choose your own wardrobe with some level of sophistication, by which I mean knowing what you want, having made reference to information, what's out there, fashion magazines or blogs or YouTubers or whatever. Keep a tidy, organized home. Do your own laundry and cleaning so that she can feel comfortable that that's not what you need her for. Stock your fridge with real food and make meals for yourself and her. Second thing, pursue your goals with your feet on the ground. A woman will want to know that you are self-reliant and capable, not these days so much because she needs you to take care of her, we've established that, but because she doesn't want to have to take care of you. If you're an idealist or a dreamer with your head in the clouds thinking you're too good to get a real job because one day the world will recognize your brilliance and she'll be lucky to be with you because you'll be one of those billion-dollar exiters, you're scaring her. Unless she's a rescuer, she's going to run a mile. And if she is a rescuer, you'll be making yourself her project, which puts us back at begin. So pursue your goals with your feet on the ground. And exactly what that means, I'll deal with in the next episode. Some practical examples of that. Third thing, make your work important, but not the only thing. If your work is the only thing that matters to you, it says 2 things about you. Firstly, that you're ultimately not looking for a partner, but a placeholder for something, some arm candy, some wallflower, a mother, a cleaner-upper, a pet, a sex doll, whatever. That's how women will interpret that. It also says that you have no sense of self aside from work and achievement, and that indicates a rather brittle, maybe shallow personality. You need to find out who you are aside from work and from achievement, and be that person, once again, for your own sake, though she may guide you to it. Fourth thing that you can do to be a partner and not a project is develop your self-awareness and your emotional language. This is changing now, but historically most men have had a limited vocabulary when it comes to their inner world and their emotions. Our brains are kind of set up that way. There's some good reading by Michael Gurian if you're interested in finding out more about that, about why men's brains work the way they do. In men's groups, you often see the emotional wheel being presented. It shows a circle with only 5 partitions, each one representing a broad category of emotions. That's mad, bad, sad, glad, and afraid. Where mad equates to angry, bad means feeling guilty, sad is feeling down or depressed, glad is happy, obviously, and then afraid. And once the men have familiarized themselves with those, they then move out to the next concentric circle, which has more words per category and so on. If you find yourself needing something like that, then Google it. At the same time, don't overdo it and become all shiny and woke. That can be a little bit off-putting as well, I think, for some women. As I said, women still want some sort of a project. I do believe. Number 5, be willing to be wrong and to be guided. This one is important. Somewhere inside the male ego is the feeling that he needs to be right, to be in charge, to always get his way. And that not doing so means that he is climbing off his masculine pedestal of authority and no longer a man. And this is especially true when it comes to family members where we feel a sense of ownership. You don't own anybody, not your partner, not your kids. You don't have to win or be right or get your way. In fact, if you do always need that, it's often a sign of fragility. And I'm not saying be a wuss, but often the need to win is not needed. We just don't have to win every single point. In fact, as men grow and become mature, they learn to become more discerning about when one needs to be right or not. A mature man, one who is strongly connected to his spirit, doesn't need to get his way, doesn't need to be right. He can watch with mild amusement even while the world goes about its way, even those of his own family, and do their thing, make their mistakes, bump their heads, sometimes get things right, and then he himself can learn from them. And that's the important piece here, is being willing to be guided, being willing to be wrong, being willing to learn, being willing to be open. In fact, that one thing is what would put you on this journey in the first place. Right, so there you have it, my view on whether men should be women's projects or partners. Clearly, I'm on the side of the men being partners for their own sakes, and nobody being anybody's project. So thank you. If you found value from that, please do subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.